anyone else come?
Yeah. Oh wait, no,
No,
he didn't come last
These are the
Friday.
guys who go usually. I don't. Because like some weeks it's like a lot of people, and then some weeks it's like.
Last week there was a lot of people. It's just people I've never seen before.
I think it's because of the sale. You draw a lot of people. You think that's why?
YouTube is.
I think it's because it's the holiday.
YouTube is so funny.
What was last week?
I love YouTube shorts.
What holiday? What was the holiday? Christmas. Isn't everyone off last week? What? No, Christmas like next week. No, I'm saying like holidays done.
Yeah, there was
Last week. Yeah. That's why. Yeah.
That's why everybody came. I didn't even know that saved. I came here randomly last week.
I didn't see like.
You don't see the announcements that have it's like, oh, this guy's coming on. No.
I just came.
No.
All right.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Oh, it's not on. Assalamu alaikum. So, thank you all for coming. It's been a while since I've done this.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a while.
What happened?
That's a long story. But it's kind of related to what we're going to be talking about today. So, I've been recently thinking a lot about. So I am an attorney, on immigration specifically, and so I get a lot of questions about the next administration and how it's going to impact my clients, right? So I have a lot of Syrian clients, for example. So these are people who are from Syria who came to the United States in the past 10 after the Civil War and started a life here, had children here, have jobs, have businesses, and they're all worried about what's going to happen, right? What they did is like reestablish themselves here in the United States. But one of the things that we uphold here in the United States is very important to us is the upholding the rule of law, right? If you don't have legal status, if you're not here on a legal basis, then there's going to be some type of removal, right? And so a lot of people are worried. And so one of the things that I wanted to talk about today was understanding who we are, what we're doing here, and how we got here. And so I'm actually going to take this as like a series in terms of talking to you guys about immigration and citizenship in those two main broad points. And specifically, we're going to be asking a few questions, and then there's going to be broad questions that we're going to be focusing on. Okay?
We want to call it series.
Immigration and citizenship, right? This is just immigration and citizenship.
What do you think about illegal immigrants coming in the southern border?
Yeah, I saw it. That's illegal. So as a attorney, I'm not going to advocate someone do something that is against the law. But if you have a proper asylum claim and you are seeking refuge in a country, then that is perfectly fine, right? All right.
Even the conditions for like illegal immigrants, it's like horrible.
Yeah, I don't think it's something that people would want to do. So a lot of people complain about there being a lot of economic immigrants, and these people who are coming aren't necessarily running from problems in their country, but they're trying to just seek better economic opportunities. But what I would like to focus on is these main points. One second. All right, so we have a set of questions that we're going to ask.
If you want, you could put it in your pocket, okay? So you ain't gotta carry it.
Okay, I'll put it in my pocket.
Inside pocket.
Inside.
Who am I? Okay. Where am I? Where am I?
It's mostly for the online viewers.
Yeah, I think this is gonna. Okay. Who
That's better.
Am I
Crisp.
where
It's right.
am
2010.
I?
2010.
None of my devices can.
Handle 2010? Oh man.
1080s and Max.
Yeah, 1080, 1440.
How did I get here?
144.
That's what I mean.
Where
Potatoes.
am
I think even 720, that's like good enough for me.
720.
If I go to
720
720, my
on your
phone
phone
burns out.
720 on your phone is good.
It doesn't work for me.
But
Really?
the quality is like fine.
On the phone.
You have like a.
Not like a big
No, this
screen,
phone
like
is
a
fine.
big-
but This phone doesn't have any dots like that. That's the issue. So it's always
yeah.
connected to a hotspot.
Alright. And before we jump into these questions, and like I was gonna first start off like open discussion, talk about some of these questions and what they mean to you and what you might understand from them, and then I'll try to direct the discussion in a certain way to cover some of the ideas that I want to go over. Alright, I'm just gonna start off with a little bit of Quran for us to begin. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. حاميم. تنزيل الكتاب من الله العزيز العليم. غافر الذنب وقابل التوب شديد العقاب ذي الطويل. لا إله إلا هو إلهي إليه المصير. ما يجادل في آيات الله إلا الذين كفروا يغر فلا يغرك تقلبهم في البلاد. كذبت قبلهم قوم نوح والأحزاب من بعدهم وهمت كل أمة برسولهم ليأخذوه وجادلوا بالباطل ليدحضوا به الحق فأخذتهم فكيف كان عقاب. وكذلك حقت كلمة ربك على الذين كفروا أنهم أصحاب النار. الذين يحملون العرش ومن حوله يسبحون بحمد ربهم ويؤمنون به ويستغفرون للذين آمنوا ربنا وسعت كل شيء رحمة وعل وعل وعلما. للذين آمنوا ربنا وسعت كل شيء رحمة وعلما فاغفر للذين تابوا واتبعوا سبيلك وقهم عذاب الجحيم. صدق الله العظيم. I'm gonna read the translation real quick.
What surah is that?
This is Surah Ghafir.
was working. Don't change it, man. It was all working. Maybe it's because
It's picking us up. Maybe this is.
Assalamu alaikum. Everything good now? All right. So,
This has tiny
it's okay. All right. So let's go back to our
It's
discussion.
like 20 seconds delayed, but it's still good.
It still works. Yeah. So hopefully whoever.
so people can think about their questions.
Yeah. If anybody has any
I
questions.
love the technology.
Alhamdulillah. 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 Yeah. So these questions, what do you guys think they're, how are they related to immigration and citizenship, right? So, I obviously have an idea of how I'm going to connect them to these things, but these are also like very important questions, existentially, right? So what do you guys think of like Yeah. So it is philosophical. It is. But it is connected to the law as well.
Earlier.
Hmm. You under,
Where am I?
yeah,
How did I get here?
yeah.
You got a sneak peek this morning.
So
Yeah, it was long.
yeah. So the idea is that these are like very important questions. Like actually, a lot of people ask themselves, just because. So have you guys ever been in at a point in your life where you sit back and like, how did I get here?
Yeah.
You know, especially you guys, you
It's
recently
crazy.
graduated. You look back at your life, it's like, oh my God, how did I get here? What did I go through to get here?
Especially
And like, who am I at this point? Right? You're not the same person you were 4 years ago. You know, uh, who are you gonna be in the next few years? Like, where have you, you know, what is the future gonna be in store for you? Who are you gonna be after those 4 years? Right? These are like extremely important questions, right? And I think one of the best techniques that a person can go through is actually constantly asking themselves these questions, um, constantly putting themselves in a position where they're confronted with these realities in a very extreme way. Um, and, yeah. And so I kind of want to just discuss each of these questions and see.
You've seen extreme way. Can you provide an example?
So you can just do it on your own. Like a lot of this happens, like okay, sometimes life happens.
Traumatic experiences.
Traumatic happens, but we don't want to wait for a traumatic experience to happen for you to go through this. And so I would encourage. So one of the good ways of doing this is by just talking about it. So we are going to go through the. It's not be as traumatic and experience changing or life changing as a traumatic experience would be, but it still is putting you and your mind through this process of going through answering these questions, right? So I didn't put these in any particular order, but now that I'm looking at it, so what do you guys think should be the first question you ask? Like when you first open your eyes, if you're in the middle of a forest,
Where am I?
where am I? Right? Where am I? So this is number one. This is where am I?
If you didn't add the forest,
Yeah.
what would be the question then?
Then
I would say
I
four.
feel like it would have been.
If there was no forest.
Yeah, so I think these two are connected in some way. These two are connected. Yeah. Because the who,
I think the where goes.
you can, your who changes depending on where you are.
I think the where connects with the other
Hishu.
questions.
who you are, actually you as well. If you guys didn't live where you live currently, would you be the same person?
Most definitely.
Right? Yeah, you. Would you be the same person if with where you are?
Crazy. You'd be totally different. I would not.
No, I think because I remember I read somewhere where like they did a twin study where like twins that were like separated from birth, they lived in two different parts of the world, and they realized like when they brought them together, they shared a lot of the same sort of
Traits,
behaviors,
personality traits.
inclinations, traits. and
But
all
like,
that.
are you still the same person?
That's like he's saying if that twin was in Montreal versus Ontario,
Yeah.
will it be the same person or will it be a different person? I mean,
Are you similarity like
yeah. Like,
Assalamu alaikum.
there's similarity and they do share a lot of like
Similarity. I'm saying as you, not the
like
twin
exact
thing.
same person?
Are you not okay? Are you the same person at? Pause, guys. We're Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah, sorry.
Assalamu alaikum. Muhammad, how's it going? Assalamu alaikum.
There's like 20 Muhammads.
Yeah.
I'm guessing he's related to you guys.
Yeah.
Oh, mashallah.
Very nice to meet him.
He's the one that's here, right?
No, he's
he's
at UF right now. Yeah. I guess he's a
What year are you?
Yeah. Let's go and see.
Oh, I think I've seen it.
Yeah.
Back when we did the community center.
I think he has
Like,
problems here. That's why we're
Yeah. I actually wanted to talk to you about it after CSC.
Okay. Brief break.
Nice to meet you.
Now everything is delayed. It's gonna come to the 22nd.
Very easy to remember.
I think that's so funny.
It is really.
You guys want to scoop in?
I wanted to add to this. I kind of disagree with you when you said those are related. I think the last three are related.
The last three.
They're more related to them.
How did I get
Who am
here?
I?
Where am I? So these are all location based, right? I think location is important,
Yeah,
and then
that's
this
why I
is based on who you are,
That's
right? So yeah, these are automatically
Well, I don't think
connected.
The fourth one has anything to do with any other one.
Yeah, this is like future based. This is
Yeah,
like
where
on
am
its
I
own.
going?
These three are closer to each other.
Yeah.
But where do we start? And I think that's the
Who
question
am I?
where we're trying to answer is like which one precedes? Who am I or where am I?
I think.
And where is what I'm trying to point towards. I think we automatically all stated where, but now I think we might be questioning. But we honestly, I think there is this strong connection between who you are and where you're located,
I
right?
think where it helps you define who. Is that what you're trying to get at?
I think
That's like I was picking up.
no. So I'm saying that
Like where I am. Okay, here I'm in the mosque. I'm a Shia Muslim.
mhm.
At USF, I'm a USF student. Like I'm a computer science student. You know.
No.
It just depends on the location.
I'm
My
saying
home,
that
that's
if you
not-
grew up somewhere, no, that's not what I'm trying to say.
Where am I saying like where am I going to make you the person?
So let me also maybe if you guys remember the context, you guys it would help. So this is immigration and citizenship. So how did you get here? Like because of the people immigrate all the time, and then you're a citizen of a certain nation and a certain tribe, right? You're a part of a certain community. So in the context of these broader ideas, and we're still trying to make it as philosophical and existential as possible, but who am I and where am I is what we're trying to figure out and delve into is just our thoughts about these different questions. And so our initial question is like, which one do you think comes first? When you first open your eyes and you're trying to come to understand your situation and to gain information about your circumstance, I think where am I is something that I think we should. So where am I? Where are we, guys?
14 stars.
So there's time and space. So what year are we in?
2024.
2024. What about Hijri?
1445.
1446.
I don't know.
I
Oh,
don't know.
It's pretty
I don't know. I don't know. What month are we in?
Shows you who I am.
The month of December.
Hijri? Hijri?
You know it, man. Come on.
Oh, you have it on your phone, man. That's cheating.
No, it's a good idea.
So where, since we know in time and space, where isn't just limited to space, it's also time. Time and space are related. So where we are, this is space, this is time. So what about space? We're in the United States of America, we're in the state of Florida, we're in Tampa, right? Right? Anything else? Anything else you guys want to be particularized in regards to where?
I don't think. I think we're at the necessary. Like we're good there.
We're good there?
Yeah,
Okay.
'cause I don't think a masjid will,
No,
or
I
like
think
Florida will.
I think that would, I
differentiate.
think that puts in like a little difference. Like my shit, like 14 stars.
Mm-hmm.
The more, what's the word? The more
Specific?
the more specific you go, the more it's.
No, I think we should be as specific as possible.
What
So
about
you-
like position in, I don't know, like let's get bigger,
Position
like
will
the
go into space.
solar system or like.
Yeah, I'm just asking you guys. Open discussion to try to parse out.
I think
I'm-
states
like
make
I
a
said-
difference. Florida and New York are different
Yeah.
states.
Yeah, Florida and Texas and California.
Albany and New York City
yeah.
are different places in New York as well. Just with my
Yeah, the city is different than upstate.
It's I think it's different, and especially if you spend like, if you're gonna, take it mathematically. If you're gonna do it like area under the curve, where it's not just one spot. It's like you living there,
Mm-hmm.
for 5 months or 6
Yeah, yeah,
months.
you're-
6
you're-
months in Albany versus 6 months in New York City versus
It's
6
gonna be
months
a
in
different experience,
Jacksonville versus
different.
6 months in Tampa or Miami. They're all a different person. Each one will give you different experiences, and it will make a different who am I think.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah,
that's
no,
what we're gonna
places
transition
don't
to
go
after. So you can make us because
And
let's
then-
say for a period of time your location, like even weather. If you were up north for the winter time, what is that gonna do to who you are?
Does it really?
You're gonna be cold.
I mean, yes, it will change the way you live your life. or
Yeah, it's
does it
difficult. It's more difficult.
Does it really decide who am I?
Okay, so let's go to that question then. Who am I? What kind of question is that? Like, this is a question of identity.
Affect your emotions, like the way you feel.
Oh yeah, cause like
The
I think
season.
that question's like subjective, you know.
All these questions
Yeah,
are
it kinda does,
subjective.
like,
All
you
these
have someone
questions are
that's, like,
subjective.
Like
some people don't.
hard-minded,
Mhm.
like David Goggins or something.
Yeah.
Hmm.
They won't let anyone like.
Yeah, but these guys are outside. These aren't that's
These aren't
standard deviation. Like they're outside the
But
standard
I thought we were
deviation.
doing like trying to account for all cases, right? Is that the idea?
No, we're just throwing out. I'm not trying to reach any conclusion. Again, this is a general discussion. All right.
He's saying it'll be difficult to apply your example to a norm because that is not a norm. For people that are just hard.
David Goggins is
It's not a norm. That's what he's arguing. Unless you're arguing it is a norm. I don't know.
and I think you're
No. I'm not saying it's a norm, but it's like an example where it's like we
yeah.
have
So
to reconcile
actually,
that.
you want to deal with that question. So let's go through David Goggins as a person.
As in I mean we can specify where it's like
No,
He
because
doesn't get-
these
he
are
doesn't allow
all
the weapon.
subjective questions. These are. He's this former special forces Marine who is very no, he's very aggressive about you can do whatever you put your mind to. Your physical capabilities shouldn't hold you back. Mind over matter type of thing. He's extremely in that
Like he
direction.
runs 200 miles or something. Just-
Yeah, and he's actually a good case study for what we're trying to do here in terms of, where am I? Who am I? Let's use him as an example. Actually, I wouldn't want to use him. He's not here amongst us. Let me use me as an example. Where am I? I want to be more specific. I want to do this since I guess the goal that I'm trying to achieve isn't really coming across. What I'm trying to do is just have a discussion about these ideas to try to parse through them. And then eventually, like I said, I will guide the discussion about immigration and citizenship and how those things tie into these questions, right? And so, where am I? So I am in 2024, 1446, Tampa, Florida. I want to say that I am in 14 Stars Community Center.
It's 9:55 p.m.
Yeah, 9:55 p.m.
It's not ashuri.
No.
No, that doesn't impact where. 9:55 p.m. I think that's important too because now I'm asking like, who am I? So right now, I'm like, who am I? It's a very interesting question. So I think my identity is composed of my beliefs and the things that I act upon and the things that I act, right? So belief and actions.
But do you think that question can ever be answered?
Yes, yes. No, I think that you can overly philosophize about it, but they are very straightforward questions. Like, who am I? It's a very specific question. Who are you?
It's like it's like I feel like Master Chief.
Yeah, that's okay. So you never step in the same river twice. That's perfectly fine. But the question is pretty clear. And so, are you made up of your physical body? Yes. Do you think that's who you are? It's your physical body. So if I cut off your arm, are you no longer the same person?
I think I'd be insane.
A part of me is pretty.
I'm made of.
Oh, that's a good point.
Like if someone cut off my arm, I don't think I'd be the same person.
Yeah, like emotionally, something's gonna happen.
That's a good point.
So it affects you, but it's not
It's a
you though.
concept.
Right?
Yeah.
No, but that's a good point.
Marcus, hold on. So
That's a good point.
well, it depends on like in what circumstance is it like being like you're removing a body part.
Well,
Like
either way,
if I'm donating my kidney to like someone in need, right? Might be the same person.
Well, yeah, my kidney.
But if someone just harvested it without my consent, I'd be like, what is this?
I don't think you'll be the same person either. I don't think if you're donating, I think you'll still be a different person actually.
What if you consented?
Yeah, you'll still be.
It's probably more traumatic.
Physically, but no, we're talking about like.
No,
what do you think?
even
I'm thinking both. I think one might be more traumatic, like it being like forcibly taken and removed. It might be more
It
traumatic.
depends like just how much you're willing to like accept that change.
Yeah.
You know, if you just like say, oh, it's
But
fine, like you just
I
live your life.
think we're
normally.
going to the what ifs.
Well, someone's
Let's
selling
keep
my
it
arm,
general.
I don't think I'd be happy.
No, I think what I'm trying to do is that like these existential questions are very important for us to question and ask these questions for personal development. And so it's okay to just ask these questions and see where you go with them. And so, who are you?
Yeah, the question's so like
Like,
straightforward,
you know, what
but
do
it's
you
really hard to
mean?
answer.
Like, when you hear the question, what does it make you think of?
Do I tell you my name?
Is that who you think you are? Like, you just answer, just tell me. Like,
Muhammad Abdul Abbas, a soul, a Muslim. I feel like being Muslim has a really
big impact on who you are. Okay.
So it's curious because I'm sure we've answered this question before in other group projects. Right?
Yeah.
Whenever you have a group project in
Mhm.
different classes, right? You will tailor the answer to this question to whatever that class is. It's
Mhm.
interesting that you ask this question here. How are we going to tailor our answer
That's important. Yeah.
to your question, right?
Yeah, we're in
Because I know-
we're in a house of God, like we pray here. And are we gonna say, oh,
some of
I
us know
am?
each other, some of us
I'm my
don't.
favorite song.
Yeah.
You know, I like my favorite song really embodies who I am.
I'm
Or
a
the
fan
book
of
Catcher in the Rye. Catcher in the Rye. Reading it, you know, it's very nostalgic, and every time I look back and read it, I'm like, oh, I'm an angsty teenager again. But you know, we all grow up.
But see, you wouldn't say those things in a different like group project, right? If it was like a bunch of
No, I would say that like we got to be real about it. I would say that no, I think I gave my truth. But I think there is a definite answer to this, and it is like who you are is in flux and is based off of your beliefs and your actions.
interesting.
Because how are you judged?
Just belief and action.
By who?
How are you judged?
By
No, by everybody.
everybody?
By the way,
By
you act,
people,
the way you
by your actions. By God, maybe your beliefs and actions, but people,
know.
your actions.
I think it's by the way you act and look, because presentation is a big.
So I would hope that the legal system is more robust, that the way you look isn't
No, of course, we're talking
an
legal
influence.
system,
So
and
no, I
that-
think we should try to think maybe a little idealistically in terms of how are you judged. Is that like how are people judging you? Let's hope there's a saying of Martin Luther King. You know the pedigree of a person is on the judge of someone's character is in their actions.
I thought you meant
Well, wait.
by the way you dress though. Like when you said how you look, I thought like because
Who
No,
live?
no, no.
What are you talking about?
No,
No, no, no. It's like I wish that there's a future where my kids are judged by the content of their character
Yes.
rather than the color of their skin.
Yes, exactly. So the idea is that no, someone's content,
Oh no, because when he said how you look, because he's been
how you look.
going in court. Like if you go in court dressed like.
No, but even if you look bad, I would hope that the legal system
Yeah,
is
they don't,
robust
like,
enough to
they don't
look
be
at
like, oh, this
facts,
guy-
not just the image, right? You're not guilty just because you look a certain way, right? I would hope you.
Is it
Are you
contempt,
okay with
though?
that?
Yeah, I'm perfect.
Yeah,
Okay.
like
Is it contempt to do it to actually like wear like
And so it's just out of respect to the court. You should dress well. You will be reprimanded if you don't. I don't think it will reach contempt unless you're being blatantly disrespectful.
so to the question,
Hmm
when saying like it's actions that make people judge you upon, but it's also like I feel like the way you act upon those actions. Like for example, you're in like a tight situation and like you're in like you have to pick something quick, and so like people see you like, oh, he's like anxious
Maybe
about
in that
something.
moment you were
He's
anxious.
anxious about something. Oh, look, he looks stressed about something. Like that could be a way people could judge you, like the way you handle the action.
How you reacted to a situation.
Yeah, kind of.
Still an action. And I think, yeah, if you react to there's how you do something is how you do everything, right? So one of the ideas is like if you want to be good in life, do good in your prayer, right? If you the little things, right? That's one of the easiest steps. Like if you're trying to, that's why there's this saying like, do your bed and your rest of your day will do good, right? If you perfect the little things, that will express itself throughout your life. And so again, who am I? I think is composed of these things. Okay. Yeah.
Just those two things.
I'm trying to reduce it to as simple as possible. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And so, how do you guys think these two are related? And I'm gonna bring it back to me. So where am I? How is it connected to my beliefs and my actions? So I believe that because I'm in 2024, I live in a time where we have access to information. We live in a globalized society. I can travel anywhere I want. It's a very interesting time to live in, right?
They're connected in every way possible. Where am I and where am I?
Yeah,
I feel like
and so that's why I just wanted to go through it. And then Jamad Thani, at 1440, same time period. Actually, what's interesting is when you think of time as like this is our separation from the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam, and so that's also very impactful in terms of who I am. I'm someone after all this time that still has a belief in Prophet Muhammad and his revelation. Um, I'm in the United States. I'm in the United States, land of the free. I was born and raised here, so it's a little different than maybe someone who. Where am I? I'll just forget
You were
born.
born here?
Yeah. Um, so I'm in the United States. I have a certain perspective, and I have a certain perspective on the world. I have a certain perspective. I went through a certain education system. Uh, all these things.
Or like
I'm in Florida. I'm in the South. I'm in a.
like the where my details. Like I
Mhm.
feel like they could connect to like in 2024. There's a lot of things that have happened.
Yeah,
And
there's
so like the way that U.S. portrays it, that's how you viewing the world.
exactly.
So now you live in the U.S., so your beliefs and
So all these are interconnected. So Tampa, I'm in Florida. I'm in Tampa. It's the time is really impactful too. Like I'm here at 10 o'clock at night. I have the ability to be here at 10 o'clock at night. I have the capacity, you know. Any other questions or thoughts about these two questions?
I think where am I is something that can grant you more capacity or limit you. I think.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, where am I at 10 Hijri,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Would be a different kind of capacity and limitation versus 1446. And just like you said, you if you want to go from here to like India, 10 Hijri,
Mm-hmm. But let's think about it this way. Actually, let's think about a place that was probably better off in 10 Hijri.
Like
Sub-Saharan Africa. So, Sub-Saharan Africa, I want to use that as an example. So let's look at Mali. Mali Empire, everybody's like knows about Mansa Musa and the richest man ever. Well, if you go to Mali now,
It's different.
it's different. It's different. It's different.
In a bad way?
It's different. No, it's bad. It's much worse. So, where would you rather? Would you rather be living in Mali now or 300 years ago, 400 years ago? I'd much rather be living in Mali.
Oh, I don't know.
If I was a person in Mali, I would much rather be living in a time where I wouldn't be killed. There was financial and economic stability and abundance, right? So, United States, I would like to live in the United States now, but if the United States has only been colonized or highly populated and brought into the world in terms of the historical world for humans, in terms of our history books and old world, new world, in the past 500 years. 500 years ago, would I rather be in Florida or in Baghdad? I'd rather be in Baghdad.
What
Right.
about like before the advent of like modern medicine or like childhood mortality and all that? Like,
you still have a
back
preference.
then,
No, it's much better in Baghdad. They had science. They
No,
had
but,
advancement.
like if you just get a cut on your arm, you're gonna have to like amputate. Like,
No, I don't think that's true. I think that's just an
Yeah,
idea of.
that's absolutely true.
I don't know. You guys are doctors. No, it's not true. It's not. We had antibiotics.
No, they used to have.
Yes.
Actually, medicine was pretty
Even
advanced.
Yes.
Even before
This guy.
Indians had some good medicine.
I don't know why.
They used to cauterize me.
But I think when you get to this who am I question,
Mhm.
you have to start even broader. So
Yeah,
there's certain
sure.
aspects of yourself that are in your capacity to change.
Yeah.
And then there are certain aspects that are not in your capacity to change.
Oh, like where?
So like for instance, when you say who am I? For instance,
I'm a male, not a
Male.
female.
yeah. Well,
Ah.
some people will say that's changeable.
Oh man, okay, hot water there for a second. Yeah, that's so true. We're in Florida. That's true. This where helps.
But anyways, gender,
Yeah.
ethnicity,
Yeah.
right? Culture. I
Yeah.
would say for some people, even religion, they would argue that religion is what you're born into, even though
Yeah.
for us, we think about religion in a more broad sense, where you yourself should have the opinion in what you practice. But for many people, they say, hey, well, I'm a Catholic Christian because my parents are Catholics,
Or
Yeah.
Hindus are going to the caste
Yeah.
system.
some of these aspects are arguable, perhaps.
Yeah.
But
I
I
w-
would say that there are certain things that are not in your control. Even, for instance, your age. Your age is not.
That's why I'm trying to bring these factors in, honestly. So I think I'm trying to bring these in to influence like how we understand who am I, and I'm trying to reduce who am I as much as possible to like you can shed the language you speak, you can shed your cultural background. I guess you can't shed your gender. I get no, you can. I guess you can.
But
But what I'm trying to do here is trying to get who am I to as specific as possible and play with where am I going or how did I get here and where am I? Because
some people would argue that you can strip yourself from your beliefs. You can say,
Yeah.
hey, look,
they're in flux. That's what. They're in flux.
Right?
They're in flux.
So there's a lot of things then. So what is it about your personality then that's static? Is it all dynamic, or is there any portion of your being that you would say is static? Your fifth.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
And let's open it up to everybody else because I can answer it in a very specific way. But I would like to hear other people's thoughts.
Your fitra.
So what is something that is not changing about who you are? So your beliefs might change. Something essential to who you are as a person.
like what would be like your distinct feature? Like,
So I would say like all these things are in flux.
Like it's the same
there a
throughout your life.
Can it be something that you'll never understand? Like there's stuff that will never understand. Can it be that or no?
your limit to know?
Your limitations?
Like it's like a constraint. Can that be part of who you are?
Yeah, I'm limited.
like something that can. Marcus, ghost. Something that I can never understand really. Um, how people expect to get rid of racism, but they won't stop talking about racism.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
a big part of who I am. Because I don't like mentioning that this person is, for example, African American, or this person is white, whatever, because that will just,
You don't like mentioning it?
not, okay,
Like labels.
You don't
word
think,
it
I
like
think
that.
you're
Well,
not
no, you get what I'm
comfortable
saying.
with that type of discussion. Maybe because you just don't know how to deal with it.
No,
That will go in
I
the
don't
knowledge
think,
thing you're talking
I don't know, I don't think that's like, but I don't think that's connected to
So
our
I
country.
think,
I'm sorry.
no,
I'm
I
sorry.
think, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say because like I feel like there's a lot of things that you can see in like young kids that are that you can see in the rest of their life. Honestly,
They carry
yeah,
on.
it sort of permeates through all stages of your
Like a personality
life.
They
trait.
call that temperaments.
I would say like personality, a habit
Like
that
maybe your
stays.
sense of how curious you are. Maybe like you're more curious than other people, or
Like-
temperament, like
That's
anger,
what they call it.
how well you're.
But I think on any of these things, we can train ourselves to change. Like if I wanted to change my temperament, I could. I think,
So your answer to Eshu is that if you discuss this more with other people, you would be more comfortable with
Yes,
with this
exactly.
idea. That's
What
what you're
about,
telling
like,
him.
No,
Yes.
but I don't think. Okay,
You
know
think
what?
you think
I'm
you'll
not
never?
gonna get into it because you're gonna yell at me.
No,
No,
What
no.
about
I
like
don't think racism exists.
Okay.
You don't think it's like, you don't think that people
Of course, there are people who are like
bigots?
Systematic.
I think,
towards specific ethnicities or like a bit, but like in the overall, like I don't know. I don't think there's anything like in this country that, for example, a white man can do that a black man can't.
You're saying currently. You're saying right now in this
Yeah,
age,
yeah,
right,
of course, yeah.
this time.
no, but you don't think that people, there are some racist people?
No, of course there is, but I don't
Okay.
like in like the general. Okay,
mean, like,
maybe I
systematic.
could have said it better. Of course it exists, but like you get what I'm saying.
I don't think it's like a permeating issue for institutions in society.
Yeah, like I don't
Sure.
think it should be talked about.
Why do you think it should be
Okay,
talked about?
but I don't think it should be so.
Is it an
Because dude, like
essential
you
part
see,
of who
you
someone
see
is?
BLM literally all over your face.
So you're, I
don't
think
think
what
it
your
should be
whole
that way.
idea about this is that your race or your color isn't an essential part of who you are.
No, it is, but I don't
It-
think.
No, I think it
I don't
isn't.
know. I don't know how
I
to
think
put
what
it.
you're
You
trying to
agree.
say is
You're
that,
saying color shouldn't define what you are.
yeah, I
You keep
think,
bringing it up. You're eventually gonna make it define.
Yeah,
who
yeah,
you are.
yeah,
That's okay. Thank you. That's what I really meant.
that's what I was trying to say for you.
Yeah.
I was trying to give you the words.
What we're asking you is this idea that you have. Can this idea
Because,
change?
like, for example, if you're a kid, right, and then you turn on the TV and Black Lives Matter all over the screen, right, you're gonna be like, huh, I'm not black, so it must be
Yeah.
really, who
Yeah.
am I, and it creates that sense of racism, and then you're different
Separation.
Separate.
Yeah.
and then it like discriminates, and I don't agree with that.
Yeah, I completely agree. So, does anybody else have anything in their mind that might be like an essential part of who they are?
That will
Wait.
never change.
Yeah.
I have a question on like you said like you can will yourself to
Yeah.
change.
You want to challenge that? Sure.
Yeah, because in some sense you're
David Goggins is a
acting in
perfect
bad
example.
faith to yourself.
Isn't David Goggins a perfect example of someone who just does
Maybe it
whatever?
was always part of him. Like he just found that.
No, apparently it happened after. No,
Yeah,
he was fat. He was fat.
He got into that.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
what he resorted. He found himself, and that's what he did.
Why did
He
how did
found
get fat?
himself in the. It's not something he had when he
Yeah,
was
he
a
did.
child,
What are you
but it
talking
wasn't
about?
when he was a
Of course he did.
child.
He got fat intentionally.
I'm not. Why do you think I'm arguing that he got fat
No,
intentionally?
I'm asking you. I'm asking you. Did he get fat
At some
intentionally?
point, maybe he had a different idea, but eventually he did discover who his traits were, like what he
So-
can
so he
do,
changed.
and he did.
No, man.
He's saying
So
he
No,
changed.
he didn't change himself. He found who he was originally.
what does that
who
mean?
he is.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
But he
What
wasn't
does that
always
mean?
fat. He used to be
Wait,
in the
wait,
Marines, and he was fit.
wait. Who is that? No, he was fat in the Marines. But who?
No,
What
no,
do you?
no. That was after.
No, but what do you mean by that? He found out who he is.
He probably.
What does that mean?
He looked inward. He's like,
Okay.
okay, this is what I can. These are my limitations. These are what I can do. These are what I can. These are what I know. And
Okay.
if I can focus on what I know, I
Mhm.
can make myself better.
Okay. And so, do you think that is something that has always been in him?
Yeah.
What part? Him asking that question,
Maybe
or
it was in him and he just ignored
discovered
it. He
himself.
didn't.
So
He didn't focus
if
on
you-
it. Maybe
if
he was
you-
focused on.
it's
He
like
focused on
sub-
foods.
it's
Maybe he
curious.
focused on like the material
He
world.
discovered himself. I think is what he's
But
saying. He
there's a
always had
trait
it, and he
in you that
discovered
It was
it.
inside of him, and then he
Discovered.
he
It's curious.
fleshed it out. He
Because-
tore
if
it back.
if it wasn't a part of his personality, was it actually a part of him? If it wasn't being expressed, was it ever really a part of him?
Sure, yeah,
No,
yeah.
I don't think so.
If you have a trait,
It wasn't. I can right now. I am a world-renowned singer. Am I though? It might be in me.
You don't know,
No, but I'm not right now. I'm not.
but you don't. You can't.
No,
say
no,
that you
I'm
will
not.
never know.
I'm
You can't,
not.
Like, you will never be that.
But at this moment, he cannot say he is.
Yeah.
I think
Look.
he's getting at like subconsciousness.
No, I think he's
There's
trying.
something in your brain
Yeah,
that you want.
No, I think what he's trying to say, there's something discoverable. There's something.
There's truth to this
So that's
because
like-
there is truth to this where if you do reflect enough upon yourself.
But what is that self? I think that's the question. But what is that? What is that here? What is that? What is
So,
that?
You have to introspect. You have to look inward. You
What
have
is
to
that?
have, like,
Introspect
that's
to
what we're
what?
doing here.
Introspect into
That's what
what?
we're doing.
Yeah, yeah, but introspect into what?
To who you are. You
What
have
is
to-
who you
where am I?
are? What is who you are? What is it
Where am I?
composed of?
if you
You
have
just
a,
look.
if you have a trait that's always been in you, but you don't express it, then that lacks self-discipline. If you get self-discipline, you're changing. You change as a person.
Hmm.
That takes motivation, self-discipline, and it takes other steps as well. That means you are changing
Yeah.
to apply a traits that you.
You always had that discipline. You just unlocked it.
No,
What does that
no,
mean,
no,
bro?
Because it takes.
It's in you. You're just
If you,
peeling
if
back
you
the
always
layer.
had it,
That doesn't mean
I'm not
anything.
making it more profound. I'm just
No, no,
telling
it
you.
doesn't. I really don't understand what that means.
You always
It's in there. Like,
No,
it's
no,
in
that doesn't. That has no substance. It's in there. Like, what does that mean? That has like. It doesn't. I don't know what that. No, I don't. I really don't get what that's supposed to mean.
You have to have other traits that apply self-discipline.
He's
You
saying
always.
he can't identify a person by that. I can't look at somebody. Okay, if I look at David Goggins when he was fat, I can't say this guy is a disciplined person. You cannot say that, right? You can't say that. Even though he may have the potential that you're describing, even though he may have the discoverable, unlockable traits of discipline, you cannot look at that person and be like, okay, this guy's fat, but much he's disciplined. That's what he's saying. So he's saying at that moment you cannot say that.
Okay, if we narrow ourselves to one specific time, then yeah. To like the current moment or something. But you can't just say like this person will always be there.
We're always talking about a specific time and place.
I was just thinking.
So I think going back to what you were asking in terms of is there something that we can go back to and rely on, and I think one of the only things that I think Islam gives us is this idea of the ruh, that it is the animating aspect of who we are, and that is the only essential aspect. There's this idea of the nafs that we're also composed of. We're also composed of the body. I think the Islamic interpretation of the composition of who I am is body is jasad, aql, ruh, and I think there's a fourth nafs. Yeah, there's four. So I think the essential aspects of that Islamically would be a nafs and maybe ruh. Nafs might be changing, but from what I understand about the Quran, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that the nafs does change because it's I don't know. Please.
There are types of nafs.
Yeah, النفس المطمئنة, النفس الأمارة بالسوء, and النفس you can do تزكية النفس. So the nafs I think is more of like a personality of who you are and your character, and the soul, the ruh is probably the most essential. The aql is an interesting because my answer philosophically, other than religiously, is consciousness. The thing that is underlying all is consciousness. That is the but that doesn't differentiate. Well, consciousness, yes, that's how I would say it. Yeah. But and I think that would be closer to nafs, or maybe it's a mixture of nafs. Because again, where am I? I'm in the West. I am trained in a specific fashion in terms of the law and philosophy, and so I conceive of things in a very particular way. And so even these Islamic ideas that I am close to and I've also studied, I would say that I'm more versed in Western concepts because also my language, in terms of like I speak English much more than I speak maybe Arabic or Persian or more Eastern languages that have the the language to express and identify with these things. And so that's why I would say consciousness, but I think that's the influence of where I am, and we can get to these other questions
So
later.
I'm a little confused. You're saying your soul doesn't change, but your nafs changes.
Yes, from what I understand.
So then, like, without your nafs, you're nothing, in a sense. Because then your
That
soul is like that.
it's
How
what makes you
once you know
unique. I think what you're trying to figure out is that what makes you unique from like what makes me and you different, because we both have aql, we both have bodies, and we both have a soul. So what makes me and you different would be the nafs.
Yeah, I mean, from a Quranic standpoint, وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا
MashaAllah.
قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا, right? So Allah's talking in the Quran about your nafs, right? And He says, that indeed successful is the one who purifies it, right? وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا, and basically how like how disappointed is the one who basically neglects it or doesn't really pay attention to the nafs the way that they should.
We're having a hard time seeing the equivalency to it in English, actually.
Yeah.
So would you call it ego, or what do you call it?
I would call it psyche. I think psyche is a good
Yeah.
word,
Okay.
But what's psyche?
Yeah, you're the neural. Yeah. Psyche is. I would take your neural guy.
Psyche is kind of it's a combination of basically your personality and also your beliefs, your basically your way of thinking would be the best way to summarize the psyche. Sort of your psychology as a person almost. So it would sort of encompass your ego, your superego, your I guess your id, your ego, your superego, those three.
The Freud terms?
Yeah, the Freud terms. It would supersede. It would kind of include all of that. It's basically your psychology as a person, right? That's psyche.
So it's like an umbrella term for the Freud
Yeah,
phrases. or
yeah. I mean,
id,
but
ego,
I think then there's a separate question, which is like your underlying consciousness, right, as a person. Because Allah says that at least when it comes to your nafs, right, your psyche, there's ways for you to purify it, and there's ways for you to basically abase it, right, to make it
Worse.
worse, right, to actually destroy it, right. So there are ways you can improve and sort of neglect it, right.
So that's
Wow.
crazy. It's like
وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى
حتى يغيروا
يُغَيِّرُوا
ما
مَا
فيهم.
بِأَنفُسِهِم, right? So that shows you that your nafs is قابل التغيير. It's possible to change it, right? But your ruh is something which is something stagnant.
Yeah.
That's something that you won't see Allah saying, the ruh is changing in the Quran, right? In fact, it says, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ. They ask you about the ruh. قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي. That this is like basically a command from my Lord. The ruh, that's what it is. وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. You haven't been given of knowledge except very little. So
that's soul, I guess you can call
I would call it
I don't
I would
know.
call it maybe
I have
I think
trouble.
consciousness or animus is a good word.
Animus. Animus is a good
The
old
animating-
word.
What
Yeah.
animates you?
Yeah.
Or animus might be the best word,
Yeah.
but it's
That's a
hard
good
to.
word.
I mean, people don't use the word animus.
Yeah,
I
that's what I'm
think
saying.
maybe
It's a cool old
consciousness
word.
would be like the best.
I'm more
maybe
fond with consciousness.
analogous term in English, But consciousness, I think, is different from psyche.
Yeah.
Psyche is like your psychology.
Yeah.
Right? And that's something you can change.
Uh,
But your consciousness, it's kind of like you think of Ibn Sina's, floating man.
Yes.
Right? It's like imagine the whole idea of Ibn Sina's floating man. He actually was addressing this question of who am I in many ways. In terms of trying to reductionalize almost a human being to like the bare minimum of what constitutes a human being. Is like, look, if you didn't have your arms, if you didn't have your legs, if you were blind, if you couldn't hear, if you had all 5 of your senses gone, what's left?
Yeah.
Right?
Do you remember the 10 questions we guys first started with?
Oh yes.
We talked about the hanging man.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
No, I'm trying
been a
full
while.
circle. Yeah, no, it's good.
Have him back, inshallah.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's a beautiful way to think about this question, because he actually took that angle of stripping a human being from all of his senses, and it's like, well, what's left? Still, your consciousness is there, right? So I think that is the element that is essential to human beings. what differentiates a human being. And then, the other things, of course, they're all add-ons that, could potentially, based on your experiences, you might believe that you're, as fit as David Goggins because you've watched a lot of his YouTube videos. I don't know. But I mean, that's based on your experiences, right? That's something that is قابل للتغيير. It can change. Whereas your consciousness is something that you can't really particularize consciousness, right? You're aware. Like how can you say there's gradations, right? Or I mean, if you're aware as a human being, you could say, okay, well, you're in a dream state, or you're like, kind of asleep, or what is it? Not really awake and conscious. But I think even when you're dreaming, you actually do have a type of consciousness there, right? So I think consciousness is it's a binary. It's either you have it or you don't, and so that's something that a human being has by definition. When a human being stops having consciousness, when you lose your consciousness in this world, that means people say you're dead. Right? You cease to be a human being. So I think that is the essential component that defines a human being. And then all these other things are just, potential things that can change. They're dynamic. They're in flux.
So like, for example, there's like, I've heard this example like many times. Like this woman, she's like paralyzed. She's barely responsive and she's put on health support. And basically, if you pull the plug, you can
Brain death.
Yeah, brain death. So that's considered like no like loss of consciousness, or like the person's still alive.
It's considered a loss of consciousness
So the
because
person's dead.
yeah, because I mean, if you pull the plug, this is a very interesting question from a fiqh standpoint, though, because from the fiqh,
the jurisprudence.
the jurisprudential Islamic jurisprudence says that they don't really that concept of brain death is from a fiqh lens, it hasn't actually properly been characterized. So it's a bit of a gray area. It's like, where does that fall? So I think the general rule, at least for like if you follow Sistani, right,
It's heart.
is he says like once you start life sustaining care, you can't withdraw it because it's as if you're taking that person's life. So it's best not to even start it because if you start it, then you get in this moral quandary, right?
Wow.
But I think it is a very delicate question, and it's a gray area.
It's still developing.
It's still developing.
There's still gotta be some hopefully some.
But that is a good question. Yeah, but I think in general, if I was going to answer it from a scientific standpoint, I would say that you've lost all your circuits of consciousness, all your higher brain activity is gone.
So then, like going back to fiqh, is your soul still in there, in that husk?
That's the problem.
That's the problem.
No.
No.
You say no.
Ask your marja. That's what he's trying to say, is that this is a gray area that the maraja are dealing with, and law is dealing with.
So,
Actually, it's interesting. Go ahead.
Apologies. So when you lose your conscience, it's different from losing your soul. Cause you don't lose your soul. That's what. Like it's separate from your soul leaving this physical body.
It's an interesting question because the Quran, at least, it's interesting. Have you guys heard An-Nawm Akhul Maut?
Yeah.
I know the verse that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard that a lot recently.
Can you translate it?
Is it?
Sleep is the brother of death.
Okay, and how is that?
I mean,
You kind of lose consciousness when you're sleeping, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the similarity. So when you die, you lose consciousness. But in sleep, you actually are still conscious, but you're conscious in a different realm, perhaps, right?
Or at a lower level.
Yeah, potentially a lower realm, a lower level, or some people would say a higher level, right?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Astrally traveling, moving around, going to Egypt.
But
No.
I mean, at least from a physical standpoint, you're no longer conscious, right?
Yes.
You don't exhibit any signs of, being aware of your surroundings, right? So, from that standpoint, your death is kind of a cousin, or it's linked to a state of sleep, right? But when you're dead, you don't come back to life. You don't emerge back into awareness, physical awareness. Whereas from a standpoint of sleep, you can come back,
You wake
right?
up.
Yeah.
So at what point can you not come back?
When you're dead.
That's the question, the medicine and the jurisprudence that they're trying to answer. It's like, at what point can you not come back?
Yeah, and I mean it's a very deep question. You know, I mean it's very interesting too. Even if you look at the story of Ashab al-Kahf in the Quran, right? It said, "تحسبهم أيقاظا وهم رقود." You would look at them and you think that they're awake, but they're actually sleeping, right? So it's as if like they were in a state of
What's the difference between
semi-awareness.
rukud and no?
Ruqud means like you're in a state of like complete like being supine, you know, like they're lying down.
Okay.
But you would think that they're like awake.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at them, you think that they're awake, but they're in a state where they're in like repose, you know. وَنُقَلِّبُهُمْ ذَاتَ الْيَمِينِ وَذَاتَ الشِّمَالِ, and we turn them left and right, you know. Like this was all not in their control, but when you look at them, right, it looks like they're awake the way that they're moving, right? So it's like it's very interesting when you look at these verses, right? It's like saying that they weren't really in a state of sleep. It was kind of like they were almost in
What
a
about
state
Jose?
between sleep, full sleep, and fully being awake, right? But there's a very famous verse, Allahu yatawaffa al-anfus hina mawtiha wallati lam tamut fi manamiha, right? That Allah, He takes the souls at the time of death, right? And for the souls that don't die, He takes their consciousness. He takes yatawaffa al-anfus. He takes out their consciousness, right, at the time of their sleep, right?
Takes out their psyche.
Yeah, takes out their psyche.
It's interesting he used anfus. It's
Yeah.
curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not
So-
sure what the significance is.
Yeah, I mean, but I think that's what's very interesting. I mean, it's a very deep discussion. And there's a lot of theories as well, like in Islamic philosophy, that go into like what's the difference between ruh and nafs, and they have like sir. Sir is like a level that's even deeper than nafs. They have like all these gradations, right? Where you can get very very deep with it. But I think in just if you're gonna simplify and
That's interesting.
reduce the discussion, I think
So
really,
I really wanted to go ahead.
well, really, I think the core difference is the difference between ruh and nafs, because some people make all these differentiations, but in the Quran at least we have ruh and we have nafs.
Yes.
We don't have sir and like all these other terms that people will use, and khata, and they have all these other extra words that they'll add in,
So one of the things that I'm trying to achieve with asking these questions, we looked inwardly today.
I was gonna say,
The goal is to look outwardly next time.
But isn't who am I defined by external?
Yeah, like-
the environment?
So we trying to broke it down.
Yeah.
So
To us
there's
define
different
yourself.
ways of doing this, right? So what we did today was breaking it down to like the essential pieces, and I think we're gonna build ourselves up next time. So and again, this is in the context of immigration and citizenship, and so we're gonna build ourselves up from this nafs and this ruh and this jasad and this aql, and we're gonna try to build ourselves up, in next few weeks, focusing on immigration. But I actually kind of want to just touch on these other two questions. But I know it's getting kind of late. How did I get here, and where am I going?
How did I get here? Where am I going is like
No. How did I get here? What do you mean?
it's like
How did you get here? How did you get here?
Did you swim?
Yeah, how did you get here?
What path did you take?
I was fertilized, so
No.
I became a kid.
No. What about before that? How did you get here? How did your father get here? How did your father get here?
Allah yes.
No. How did you get here? Okay, everybody here is an immigrant. None of us are. Do you have any native in you? Native American? Do you have any Native American blood in you? No. So we're all immigrants, right? We're all immigrants, right? So that's I'm trying to hint at that. So how did we get here? We're all immigrants, for one. So we all came from a specific place. This place. Why aren't we still there? There's reasons that motivated our ancestors to move.
Something happened to our places.
Things happen. So we're gonna get into that, because those things that happened to your ancestors influence who you are now. So you gotta think about this as like you are here, right? Oh, I added something. Who am I at this time? I think that's when you were talking about. We brought it down to the most essential part, and I think I want to bring it back up, and I think it's the idea of at this time. Yeah. So we have our past and we have our future. And so, where am I is right here, and who am I? How did I get here, and where am I going? And so, how did you get here? I need to bring up all your ancestors and then here's your progeny, who you are, and where you end up. Where do you think you're going to be going, and where your children and grandchildren, and where am I going? Anybody want to talk about that a little bit? Like, are we going?
Where you're going influences how you're living. For example,
Mm.
how did I get here? Where am I going? That was a question when I was in.
Do you have control over this?
How did I get here?
Yeah.
No,
Sometimes.
I feel like
depends.
It depends. Yeah.
because like
Yeah.
sometimes
Could be your choice.
like well, I'm giving my example.
Like your ancestors. you
Um,
can't control your
like
ancestors.
external factors
Mhm.
caused me to come to America. Otherwise, like
I feel like this guy, he's like, wait, I'm gonna question that.
Well, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, it's.
I'm glad we have
This is
you.
our philosophy. What? I feel questions.
No, it's great. I've been enjoying it. Honestly, it's been great. What were you saying?
I was saying like external factors made me come here.
Okay.
And if I was a different person, the who am I was different for me,
Mm-hmm.
then I feel like I would have dealt with those factors
Differently.
differently,
Mhm.
and then I wouldn't be here.
Because I don't have, because my parents, I'm only in the U.S. because both my parents decided to move to the U.S.
Yeah. Exactly. Mm.
But you chose.
No, but then that's why I kind of want to go back. So, right? I kind of wanted to use myself as an example for these. So we talked about where am I, who am I. So how did I get here? I was born and raised in Tampa, Florida. My parents moved here from Jordan, right? And from Amman, Jordan. How did they get to Amman, Jordan? Well, their parents were born in Betiksa, which is right outside of Jerusalem in Palestine. And so they've been there for generations, but they're also Arab, and we know that we're Arab historically. So some Arab tribe out of the Arabian Peninsula,
Probably Adnanite though, because you're Levant.
yeah.
Probably.
So maybe someone in southern Syria, that desert area, came up and. So
Did
this
you
is.
track your family tree? Have you actually tracked it, or did you
There is. My
research?
family has like a family book somewhere. Yeah.
I'd be curious to actually see your family tree.
Oh,
To
that's-
see where it goes.
I had a question like this.
Yeah.
This doesn't just have to be pitted on you,
Mhm.
but like could be general.
No,
I guess. Do you guys really know your ancestors like that well? Like, do you,
I think it's important. So if you don't, you should know. That's
do?
the
How
important part.
All the way back to the prophets.
What? Really?
We had a family tree. Yeah, we had a family tree.
Oh, commercial. Okay.
My dad was born in
Some people think genealogy is like a big thing.
One of the coolest things that I learned about genealogy, ancient Romans, they used to make wax faces of their dead and hang it in the front of their houses. And the children would memorize all of their ancestors.
Yeah, I've heard this. Yeah.
That's pretty creepy.
And they would wear the wax face during their funeral.
You know, I had a story. So
Very interesting. So this is a strong attachment to who you are. And they would mention, this is my uncle who did this in my, Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say like you know how Julius Caesar was like assassinated by
Yeah.
the Senate.
Yes.
Brutus, how he was compelled, like how they
Yes.
convinced him.
Yeah, because he had an ancestor named
What would
Brutus.
you think if your
Yes.
great
Mhm.
father would see
Yes.
some dictator for
Mhm.
life taking control of Rome?
Who was also named Brutus.
It's like, can you imagine
Yeah.
your ancestry? You're so linked to
Yeah,
your
yeah, yeah.
ancestry to where like your great grandfather.
Yeah.
like
No,
that would influence
if I go up
you
to a
kill
Sayyid,
someone.
if I went up to a common Sayyid and was like, are you, I kind of don't want to do it. Never mind.
But what do you mean?
The same idea. So do they have the same fervor? Do they have the same fervor and connection to their ancestors, right? So this idea of connecting to ancestry.
Because what if someone's family is from everywhere? Like they.
What does that mean?
But there is no everywhere.
That's not
You always
true.
track it back. To add them at least at some point.
Okay.
No, like,
I didn't say.
What does that mean?
like someone's dad, his parents go all over the place.
What does that mean all over the place? So if you go back far enough,
Like countries that are
huh?
they just
they
countries that
report
are randomized. They don't
like
they're
there's
connected at
photographs and
all.
all that.
That's fine, but you still have a lineage. You still come from somewhere.
You know what I just recently learned that like
It'd be curious to know
the
like,
Arabis or like the
that
Arabs that
actually
are
came
living in Arab, they're not really.
Also,
The land
after all the
belongs
scandals
to
they threw
the
the islands, right?
Assyrians
Because
and
they
the
actually mixed up
Chaldeans.
Well, so when people conquer, so what I would say, conquest happens all the time. Actually, a really interesting podcast about the Mongolians. Super interesting. These guys tore up everything. They tore up everything.
I'm saying is and like
And no, but think about how they changed like genealogy. So we talk about colonization of the Arabs up towards the north, but I don't think we really talk about how the devastations of the nomadic people destroyed civilizations multiple times.
They destroyed
Yeah, so I guess we have to
libraries
Yeah.
one after another.
home base.
I mean, the Euphrates was ruled for like
unless it was
2 months.
unless it was
Yeah,
the
that's the
India that actually
saying.
went through
That's crazy.
Alaska and came here. Maybe it was that guy.
He's he had some kids and then left.
1/10?
Yeah, 1/10 of 1%.
Maybe it was that guy.
What does that mean?
Like
Wait, you-
1%.
Yeah.
And some, I don't know, eons before something happened. I think that's back to the Pangea.
Yeah,
You know?
it's the guy that crossed over to Alaska.
Yeah,
that guy.
Is
Yeah.
that when dinosaurs
Should I
were
tell
out?
them?
Pangea.
Because that's how they actually came in through Alaska.
My dinosaurs are my.
No, but you guys are Aryan. You guys are what part of Pakistan you from? The mountains? Yeah. So you got some white blood in you. Yeah. You got Aryan, Caucasian. Yeah. Well, that's the first nomadic conquest of the civilized world. Those Aryans.
Wait,
Those.
Pashtuns are Aryans?
So historically they connect their lineage back to nomadic Aryans that conquered this area. All of the Indus Valley.
Not like
actually.
Caucasians?
The Caucasians are so. What is
Caucasians
Caucasian?
are Aryans.
Yes,
What,
Not
what,
the
do you
other
think, what do you think about the claim that race is a social construct?
it is a social
And
construct.
it doesn't really have any.
No.
Some people will say, hey,
No.
look, saying someone's black, saying someone's.
That's
white,
location.
That's
That's
all
location. That's ancestry and
that's all
location.
complete-
That's all just a mixture of location and
it doesn't make-
ancestry.
I mean, it's.
Because for black, you can be Aboriginal, you could be Indian, you could be African, you could be African.
Yeah, it's like
American,
black and
African,
American.
British. All these are black. So okay, but those are all different.
But those also fluctuate through time. So like if you look at like the United States, they defined race differently 100 years ago.
Yep.
They in South America, they had entire codices in South America about how mixed you are. So if you're a pure Spaniard, if you're a Spaniard plus black, if you're a Spaniard plus black and native, if you're a Spaniard and native and not black. So they had a whole codification of like 18 different categories of racial identity. So no, it's illegal. I would say it's not even. I would say it's a legal definition.
So in law, don't they use these like?
Yes, so it's a
define
legal
race,
definition.
define your ethnicity? Like, don't
Yeah.
you think that's?
So there's a
That's
famous
racist.
case. So I would say that
yeah,
there's
they
a
bring it up
famous
a lot,
case
yeah.
called Yun. Okay. Forgot the name of the case. Famous case. Indian guy wants to naturalize. He wants to become a U.S. citizen. During the early 1900s, naturalization was reserved to whites only.
India,
Whites and blacks.
Native American even,
Yes.
Not like.
No,
like
Indian, like South Asian. I was gonna.
Sorry.
Oh, I thought,
yeah.
yeah, I was thinking like.
No. So naturalization was open to whites and the ancestors of black people. So if you're a Native American, you couldn't become a U.S. citizen. You were part of your nation. You couldn't become a U.S. citizen. If you can be the Japanese, the Chinese, the Indian that were living, they all could become permanent residents, but they couldn't become naturalized citizens. So this Indian man made this argument that reached the Supreme Court, saying that I actually am white. I'm Caucasian. My ancestors are Aryan, and that definition was rejected. And that no, the definition of white is what is commonly what is commonly understood to be Northern or Western European. And so, and what's interesting about the law is, and especially in the United States, there's case law. So the opinion of the judge is the law, and when it reaches the Supreme Court,
Because I thought Arabs are considered white.
we are.
They're
Because there's a Supreme Court case.
Yeah.
There's a Supreme Court case in the United States that allowed a Yemeni to naturalized because
Nights.
That's like those are like the darkest eras.
honestly it was no you got to think about geopolitics. This happened in the mid 50s. So this is a geopolitical thing about oil. So no, this is you gotta.
The guy's not even
So,
Phoenician, man. He's like Catholic. He's like
yeah,
Arab,
yeah,
man.
no, yeah. The
What about,
first
like standardized
and
tests for, like,
they actually allowed the Yemeni to immigrate before a Christian Syrian.
say again?
Yes,
Wait, say again, say again.
naturalization for a Yemeni before a Christian Syrian.
Reading?
Yeah, so it is a legal definition that's influenced by geopolitics. No, it's not essential at all.
Wait, Christian Syrian meaning like they're, I guess, more light skinned than.
No, they're just not Muslim. So if that's all, because to take that into consideration, like a dark-skinned Muslim was considered white and was naturalized before a Christian Syrian who is probably more light-skinned and has the same religious beliefs. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, so you're saying like.
This
there's
is
evidence
completely
for,
geopolitical.
Like a Christian Syrian to be like.
Yeah,
For them to make the case.
yeah, it's
that I
easier
make.
to make the case for them.
But then they just gave it to the Yemeni guy
Mm-hmm.
because.
Geopolitics.
Wow. What time was this?
This early 1900s, like 1920s, 30s. Yeah. And where am I going? The one thing I want to say about this is that we are the children of immigrants, and most of us are first generation, except you, I guess. Our parents have a back home that they always talk about, this dreamland that they always talk about, right? It was the milk was sweeter, the fruits were smelled better, all that stuff. But we realize that we are going to most likely be buried here. Our children are going to be buried here, and so the idea is that our root in terms of who we are and who our children are going to be is connected to where I am, and so where I am going and where my ancestors are going to be influences backwards who I am and where am I. So these are all like questions that I think about together, and in the next few weeks we'll be discussing these questions, and then I'm gonna bring in some law and a little bit of philosophy about immigration and citizenship. So, first generation immigrant. So, they immigrated here, first generation immigrant. So first generation would be like, I guess I would be second generation. My parents came here. I was born here, so I'm a second generation. My children will be third generation. Their children will be fourth.
Wait, because I was born in Pakistan.
So you're first generation.
I'm first generation.
You're first generation.
Because I was born there.
You were born outside the country, yeah. Yeah, so you're a first generation immigrant.
Wait, Zayli, then you're technically born here in the U.S.
I was born in Pakistan.
What about your brothers? I think they were
Kanad and
born.
Amar were born in New Jersey.
So they're second, but you're considered first.
Yes. And honestly, I feel like it has an impact on who you are and what you are. Like, I feel like the milk is different. I don't know what it is. The air is different. Something's different.
Look, their mangoes taste very good.
Yeah, it might be the mangoes. It might be the mangoes.
Four different types of mangoes.
Dude, they're amazing.
Oh.
They're right about that.
The fruits are better back home, right?
Oh yeah, I stand on that.
Pakistan, like,
No, I just go to Sanwa. They import whatever I want.
Oh, it's not the same.
But I'm American.
Okay.
That influences how I perceive my fruits and vegetables. I want anything I want at any time in the season. Strawberries should always be available. So watermelons. You can go get watermelon right now.
Not cherry palms.
Yeah, the little ones. Those are kind of hard to get because I think those are grown in areas very specific. They probably don't have enough to export.
Is that it?
All right. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I appreciate it, brother.
If you guys want, we can do like 10 to 15 minutes of just, I think, your question, because you had a question about anxiety. If you want to talk about that now, or you want to leave it?
Anxiety?
It was
like how to deal with anxiety.
Yeah, no, it was like what's good anxiety and Islam. Like,
Anxiety?
Good anxiety. Okay. Because we have a bunch of hadiths that we can actually talk about. We can maybe take them, one by one if you'd like.
It was just a little
Yeah.
because like we were discussing it.
Actually,
like, you know
I
what?
once heard a hadith of Man Jafar, I don't know if it's true, Allahu Alam, that to get rid of depression, to look at green and water, to look at trees and water. It's a
Well,
good way to
when I say anxiety,
relieve
like, that's
anxiety.
the thing. When I say anxiety,
Yeah, what do you mean by
it,
stress? Or,
it automatically goes negative towards people. I'm saying like what is positive?
We'll
Like,
talk about it.
Yeah.
We'll talk more.
Like making yourself better. Like
yeah, like if you have no anxiety, is that like
urgency? Because I kind of, you mean urgency or anxiety?
anxiety? Like,
I don't know. I feel like anxiety has a negative connotation.
Wait, can you tell us what you
No,
mean by
like-
anxiety? Can you define it?
anxiety, like last second you have to do something and you feel anxious.
So that's stress. Is that just stress?
So, do you mean a sense of urgency? I think a sense of urgency is very positive.
Like because some people say that like a little bit of anxiety is what makes you keep going on with your life. And if you have no anxiety, then you're just like laid back. You're like, I
I think it's urgency, not anxiety. I would say anxiety is negative.
I was.
anxiety is negative.
Yes.
Because this, the Sayyid was talking about in his Juma khutbahs, he was talking about this positive anxiety.
I think he was talking about urgency. He did mention. I remember one time he did mention about the need to do things, and that Prophet always encouraged to do things immediately to have a sense of urgency. Oh.
I guess I only hear anxiety in like social anxiety.
That's because
Like, that's in the
Yeah,
context that
that's
I
the
kinda
context
relate
of
to.
like. I feel like this is part of
there's difference between wanting to do something last minute, getting like urgency is different, but anxiety is more of a trait that sticks with you. So like you're constant. I don't know how to explain anxiety as like a feeling, but some people are like
No, I get anxiety attacks.
yeah. I'm
anxious.
saying I think everyone.
But I just think it's.
But like being.
I don't think it's positive. Like, yeah, unless you explain
like-
it in a positive sense.
Okay, being anxious, like you have an exam coming up and you know it's hard because people are like scaring you. So that anxiety, like, oh my god, this exam's gonna like kill me, is making you study for it.
That's just urgency.
Or that's urgency.
It's still negative in a way. You,
But that's it's the root that's making you push forward to do something good that is gonna help you in the future.
I
You
suppose.
know?
I think it's a
No,
negative
it's like
emotion. So I think it's emotions. So is it a positive or a negative emotion to feel anxious?
It's curious because
So like it compares to anger. So I know there's sometimes good anger, and there's bad anger.
I think I agree that like it's a negative emotion.
So no. So is can there be negative and positive anxiety?
Yeah,
Um,
that's the.
in terms of how, because so with anger, it's just how you use it and for what reason, right? So you can be angry about what happened to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and so that is positive.
Yeah.
And
But like it's
but I
anger
can't
is
think of
still
a
anger.
positive situation for
I think it's some
anxiety.
of the hadiths we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
I think the words I read were ham and jaza are the words that I kept reading in the hadith. So they describe anxiety, they describe being worried about something, right? Because I think worry is what you're dealing with, right? You're worried about a difficult thing. You're worried about something tomorrow. You're worried about, right? And it's interesting because, you can argue that those feelings don't directly have an impact on that thing that's coming. The test is tomorrow. You're not going to change anything with those feelings directly, but you can indirectly change them, right? If you have too much anxiety or too much worry, right, ultimately going to jaza, right, about the exam tomorrow, you will paralyze. Clinically, you can paralyze yourself actually with an anxiety attacks, or even just through bad habits where you just get paralyzed, but through continuous postponement or continuous kind of avoidance.
But
of
then
the
like
situation.
let's say you have zero anxiety. Now you're like
You're not worried.
you're a bigot.
No,
You're
you're
not
not
worried.
bigot. You're right. You're actually not worried about the exam anymore, which may be a problem because then you actually may have misjudged how prepared you are for the exam. Right?
But then like that's the thing. Like I feel like that's anxiety pushing you to be
What is
prepared.
the line between care and
Yeah,
I think
yes.
that's
Yes. So let's talk about some of the hadiths. Let's talk about some hadiths. He's
Yeah.
laughing, I don't know why, but hopefully he can share the joke with us, or at least the thought he's had.
It's just it's just poor guys.
Oh, what's wrong?
Is he post scholar or is he
I
post
think
scholar?
I think he's yeah, I think it was a long day for him.
I'm sorry.
Poor
man.
guy.
I drove like 3 hours.
So let's
Yeah,
wrap
mashallah.
it up.
3 hours. That's pretty fast for
I was
Jackson.
Howard,
You were
going
driving
up.
pretty fast.
Yeah, it's like
3 hours for
4 hours.
Jacksonville?
Yeah, I live in Dracula.
That's fast.
That's
mashallah.
pretty good.
Yeah. How fast were you going?
Mashallah.
How fast
Right,
were you
It
going?
was slow traffic. It was like rush hour.
Yeah.
I don't know.
3 hours, really?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Rush
No,
hour
no,
too.
no. It ended up being, it was 3.5.
Wow. Yeah.
Well,
Inshallah,
So,
we'll wrap this
mashallah,
up
yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
Well,
we can start. We can talk about it next
We
week.
can next
We'll
week.
start.
I want to
Yeah.
get people these hadith.
Yeah, because some of these hadiths are actually very nice.
so I'll just read the English to save time here, inshallah. So, Imam Ali alayhi salam is reported to have said, overcome anxiety with patience, for anxiety erases Allah's reward and augments the catastrophe. Um, so, I think first off, we have to see the difference between jaza and ham, right? So, ham means basically being worried about something that's going to happen, something that's either right now or something that's going to happen. That's kind of ham. You have a hum about something, you're mahmoom, right? You're concerned, you're like overtaken by worry, right? But jaza is about something that already happened, right? So let's say a musibah struck you, right? Uh, some type of calamity befell you, and instead of being patient, you kind of like get really, really like distraught, right? I think the best word is maybe distraught, right? A translation for jaza. Jaza would be like, you go crazy, right? The way that you react to something, it's not with patience. You react like you completely go overboard. You completely have a panic attack, maybe, right? About something that happened to you, right? Um, so that would be an example of jaza. So you see, there are two types of anxieties, but in Arabic, there's actually two different words for them, right? Jaza is about something that already happened, right? And hum is about something that is right now or is going to happen, right? And you keep playing it on your head, you keep playing it on your mind because you're just so concerned about how you're going to deal with that, right? So I think that's really important to separate out. So when you look at these hadith, then it becomes a little bit more clear, right? So Imam Ali says in this hadith, اغلب الجزع بالصبر فإن الجزع يحبط الأجر ويعظم الفجيعة, right? He says, overcome that sense of distraughtness, right? That feeling of something bad, really bad happened to you, getting like that overreaction about what befell you. Don't fall into that, right? Be patient, because if you overreact, you end up losing your reward for whatever you would have gotten with Allah, right? The reward that you would have potentially obtained, and also it augments your catastrophe because you get psychologically that pain, that distress, that all that psychological damage afflicts you too. And it's interesting because they've actually observed this for a lot of it's your own psychology plays such a big role in how you heal from illness. Even it's people who are down in the dumps, always feeling like, man, why me? Why do I have this? Why do I have cancer? Those people, their longevity is shorter. They actually die quicker because all of that cortisol, all those stress hormones their body produces, it actually shortens their lifespan.
What if it's like a trait, like anxiety, like a genetic trait?
Yeah, you can have a genetic predisposition, sure, but I think it's also within your capacity to. It's sort of like some people, they say, look, my father was an alcoholic, my grandfather was an alcoholic. I'm going to be an alcoholic. I'm not going to have a choice. No, I mean, you have a choice. You have a choice to activate that trait by engaging in those those substances. In the same way, when it comes to your anxiety, you might have a predisposition, but you have to control that predisposition yourself.
Some anxiety that comes with no reason at all. Like for me, I have no reason to be upset about anything. I have no reason to be, but my family has a long history of severe anxiety.
Right.
So you don't need a reason sometimes. It's just there. It's just a feeling that you can't get rid of. You have nothing activating it.
Yeah.
You could be doing the best in your life. You can be at your prime and you'll still have that linger in your head. There's no way to get rid of that, right?
Yeah, and I think that's where the word jaza kind of overlaps with depression even. A feeling of depression might overlap with this, because jaza means like to completely give up, to completely like be completely distraught, right? And distraught has kind of a maybe an overlap with depression. And some people, they do have a predisposition for depression. I would say anxiety too, those kind of meld together to some extent. But even if you have that predisposition, it is possible for you to develop coping mechanisms that are more healthy, and even to get out of that without even needing medications, you can develop a strong psychology that allows you to overcome that. So I don't think you should submit yourself to your genetics necessarily. It's of course a factor to consider, but with strong positive psychology, you can emerge victorious over that anxiety and that.
Maybe harder for you than
Yeah.
someone who doesn't have that predisposition. Of
Right.
course. It is a
But I
hard
think it's also about training yourself with good mental habits so that you can recognize when you're slipping into that and be able to rescue yourself before you go too far down the rabbit hole, Self-discipline and being able to yourself recognize the warning signs that I'm slipping here, Meditation, I think, is very important. So you yourself thinking about what factors are driving your anxiety and doing some self-reflection, and in particular, when you yourself see yourself slipping into down that path, you have that self-insight, that self-awareness to say, hey, I need to pull myself out of this.
The thing is, like anxiety, like as earlier, because it doesn't always make you do more things. That's why it's mostly seen in the negative connotation. Because a lot of times, it's just ending up in bed,
Yeah.
ending up in bed and not doing anything. So I really think there's a big fine line between acting upon things because of stress and anxiety. Because anxiety usually turns into doing absolutely nothing. Right?
Yeah. I think one other thing that really helps a lot with anxiety, because much of our anxiety is about the dunya, if you ask yourself, right? If you ask yourself honestly, what are you worried about? It's about things in this world, right? So actually, the more you think, that's why it's so recommended to think about death, right? When you think about death,
Isn't there saying that the remember of death is killer desires?
yes, yep. So yeah, I'm trying to remember the exact hadith for it, but I think قتال الشهوات or something like this. Yeah.
The killer of desires. Remember death often. It's a
Oh,
killer
death is the killer of desires. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
So-
really true.
Yeah, so I mean, when you constantly reflect upon, like you said, where am I going, right? When you recognize that, hey, I'm going to be in a coffin one day, 6 feet under, everything of this world stops losing its significance,
Yeah, it's so, like, priceless.
Yeah, it's like what really matters then is the akhirah. You start focusing on your hereafter, right? Because you recognize that, look, I mean, even if you think, even an atheist, actually, when an atheist thinks about death, it sort of, but it sort of makes a lot of it's actually a way, even psychologically, even if you didn't believe in an afterlife, right? Thinking about death would actually help calm your anxiety, right? Because it's like, well, what does it matter if tomorrow, I lose my job, because I'm gonna die anyways. Like, what is it? Yeah.
Cancer,
It's kind of like the YOLO thing that was popular.
It's inevitable. We're all gonna die. So why fixate on what's gonna happen to me tomorrow and all the fine gritty details? I don't, in the long term, I'll be fine. I'm surviving. I have clothes. I have a roof over my head. And even if I don't, I mean, at least I have a place to sleep, right? Like you start to think in this fashion because you realize very soon, these moments that you have in this world that you cherish and you value, living in the present, you're soon not going to have it when you pass away, when you finally die, right?
There's a line between desiring death and expecting death, right?
Yeah, still, of course, but I think recognizing the inevitability of death helps you, even if you look at existentialist philosophy, right? Yeah. No, but even existentialism, right, as a philosophy, they say, hey, look, make the most of your present, because we're all not going to exist at some point, right? If you read like The Stranger, right, of I think Camus, right, he wrote this book about this individual who's traversing life, and he gets disillusioned with everything, disillusioned with religion, but he like constantly keeps trying to create his own meaning in the context of recognizing that his death is something inevitable. He's going to die. So let me make the most of this time. Even if you're an atheist, actually thinking about death grounds you, So it's interesting. I mean, in our religious tradition, though, thinking about death is such a virtue. It's so highly emphasized. And this is actually a very deep point that I think a lot of us forget, or really don't realize the beauty of Islam, in emphasizing this, because it really helps to ground you from a psychological standpoint. When you put everything in context and you look at things from a bigger picture, it really helps destroy your anxiety. You know.
It's when you pray, you're actually it's recommended to pray as if it's like your last prayer.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like
The
if you
salah
pray,
and the sunnah is before each salah. Salat al-muwadda.
Salat al-Muwadda, the prayer of one who's gonna die after
Yeah.
prayer. So
Salat
it's
al-muwadda. They say
interesting that
that
it kind
before
of
each
ties
salah.
into that. Even your prayers force you to be like, okay, if I died
Even
right
the
after this prayer,
symbolism of
how do I talk
sujood.
to what matters in the end? How do I talk to Allah at this point?
You have a question?
No, I was just gonna comment. I think that in and of itself, I think that anxiety is sort of like an imbalance. I think like you have to introspect a little and think about, for instance, why are you have so much anxiety? Why do you study more when you figure out, oh, the exam is hard? You might have like an inherent fear of like failure, for instance, failing your
Yeah,
exam,
that's
failing your career, and something
that's
else
what
is
makes you.
this. So I think in that sense, you're kind of tied down to the dunya, and I think thinking about death is kind of ground you back to having that balance. So I think in and of itself, I think anxiety is an imbalance, but I think thinking about death, thinking about the akhirah and stuff like that, it helps you to create a balance in yourself.
So more of it is it's more of like a stress, like a
Yeah, and I think the positive thing is the urgency. I think the urgency behind doing something and not being lazy about final, like you have to take out the trash.
mm-hmm.
Well, do it now and not in the middle of the night, so you don't because you know you're not gonna wake up in the morning. Or study for the exam from now so you don't have to cram 2 days before. A sense of urgency about even something as simple as like, oh, there's something on the road that someone else might hit that I was able to traverse. Let me feel a sense of urgency about moving that out of the way.
Maybe an anxiety has
Urgency to do good.
maybe an anxiety has a connotation of fear in it. Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe that's what it is.
Yeah.
You're
So like
fearing
how
something.
brother said, like
Yeah.
death. Once you like realize it, or and brother Mama Jaffer, like when you realize it, then like things could become clear to you. 'Cause,
Fear
like,
of other things goes away.
fear of other
Yeah.
things. Yeah, fear of
There's
like
something bigger.
yeah, like you feel like, oh, after I'm dead, like it's done. Everything, the worldly, materialistic things.
And that's why I think in Islam there's like a lot of emphasis on your risk is something that Allah has guaranteed. وَفِي السَّمَاءِ رِزْقُكُمْ وَمَا تُوعَدُونَ, right? A verse of the Quran that in the heavens is the risk that you've been promised. Allah has already apportioned and destined what's going to be for you. Of course, that doesn't mean you don't strive, you don't try, but it's supposed to take you away from this excessive focus upon the dunya that you're constantly, worried about, your dunyawi life, right? It's very interesting because if you look in the Quran, actually, you'll see that whenever Allah talks about the hereafter, right, he actually uses the word sa'i, or sari'u ila maghfiratin min rabbikum, right? وَمَنْ أَرَادَ الْآخِرَةَ وَسَعَى لَهَا سَعْيَهَا, right? So the word sa'i means to rush, right? Or sari'u means to race, right? أو سابقوا إلى مغفرة من ربكم. There's all these words like race for it, strive for it, go run towards the akhirah, right? When it talks about the dunya, it's like yamshi fil aswaq, like it's uses, intashiru fil ard wabtaghu min fadlillah, right? For instance, it uses like, disperse on the earth, walk towards the markets, right?
Run to Jum'ah, but then walk away, to your businesses.
Yeah, I mean, like, so you see the whole focus in the Quran, even the word choice is so important, right? Or for instance, there's another word, right? فَامْشُوا فِي مَنَاكِبِهَا وَكُلُوا مِنْ رِزْقِهِ وَإِلَيْهِ النُّشُورُ, right? That's from Surah Al-Mulk, right? Like, walk upon the flanks of the earth, right? Seek from its sustenance. But it's saying like walk. It doesn't say rush, run, right? So when it comes to dunyawi things, Allah is saying, seek it, but you don't have to run and destroy your whole life
But
for.
I think this is the idea of like resources. Like there's
Right.
no scarcity. I think
Yeah.
a lot of humans have this idea about scarcity and the need to get resources, and I think we don't think in terms of abundance and infinite.
Economics
Yeah.
as a subject is designed like that, where it's not abundance, it's limitation.
Yeah, it's a forced limitation. So the economic system is framed within a limited.
Something limited.
Yeah. I mean, but it's so interesting, right? Because you see how Allah frames things in the Quran and then how human beings frame them, right? But when you look at that dynamic, like even the word choice in the Quran is so important. When you actually look at the words, right? You know, it really helps you to understand the type of psychology Allah wants you to have. You know, seeking the hereafter and making that your primary focus. And then you get some, you know, so I think when you look at things in that context, right? It's like you realize, hey, all this, most of our worries, most of our stress comes from actually. It's strange that we're not really that concerned about what's going to happen to us after we die. You know, it's like people aren't like, ya Allah, I'm so scared of hellfire. Oh, I can't sleep. Oh my God. Oh my God. They're like, oh man, what if I fail that exam tomorrow, right? You don't really worry about like
all the potential good you can get in the
Yeah.
after, all the potential like
Yeah, like the good of it. Like,
yeah, like for just small things, you know.
and
Yeah.
I think it's because like we live off like examples. Like when if it's either examples of if something happens to us. Like if something happens to us, then we're
Yeah.
like, oh my God.
it's all about like what's happening in the here and now. Everybody's focused in on
We don't
now.
have a
You
lot
know.
of space to look outside of this.
Yeah.
Like our capacity could only be so much. I think actually what makes prophets especially powerful is their ability to empathize and understand across time and space. So, like the Prophet Muhammad, there's many hadith about him crying in the night profusely about us. He's crying about us.
Take care,
he
man.
didn't know that we existed. He didn't know that we would be born. But when he was asked that by one of his wives that Allah has forgiven, your sins and given you maqam al-mahmuda, you're still doing it. He's still worried about his ummah. And he called us his brothers, the people who believe in me after I'm gone, are his brothers. So the capacity to be able to do that, I think, it's because we kind of go through the process on our own to try to understand these things. Like we do these intellectual endeavors, and I think we can see how difficult it is to just think for the good of one generation, not two generations, and to also be able to implement good to impact them, right? So like our whole like one of the big things is like, oh, you want to build generational wealth, like that's like the big thing about being a professional in the United States. You want to the American dream is about getting the house that you can retire in and give it to your children, and you're creating generational wealth. What about like generational iman, generational taqwa? Like how like we have full seminars and
I don't think
and
that's possible.
That's the
It is.
Generational iman.
Interesting.
That's what Ibrahim alayhi salam was
Interesting.
praying
What did
for.
he made the dua for? Yeah.
Man, come on.
Yeah.
So let's Allah has prayed for that too for us. We'll talk more.
Yeah,
about
he's
it.
our soul.
No, but he prayed for the ummah for this for generational
humans
taqwa.
don't.
Yeah, that's he had the capacity to do it. We are like limited in
Yeah, we're
terms
not
of
him,
our
bro.
Humans
we're
don't
not.
use
we can't,
100% of
but they
yeah,
capacity, right?
I know what you're saying,
we
but
just
like,
scientifically don't.
come on, it's just
no,
us.
we
There's always
we gotta do
room.
what we can. We gotta do what we can.
That's not quite true, but yeah, but
we don't use 100% of
we don't use. Of course, we don't use 100% of our capacity,
I
but
think it's all about capacity. Like we have a lot of potential.
we have human beings do have a lot of potential.
Like it's
Yeah,
100% for a reason, but I'm just saying like
yeah.
Are you using your full potential? Just be honest right now. Are you
No.
using, okay?
if
There you
it
go.
was my like I would
Yeah.
rule the world. with my
Exactly.
potential.
See,
You'd be flying, man.
even
You'd be like an angel, like flying.
you can levitate.
Teleport.
Yeah, you can go to different
Phase
realities.
through walls.
You can go through different realities.
Be a dictator.
Teleport.
Be a dictator.
But like
You know-
peaceful dictator. Not, I like dictatorship, but there's bad dictatorship and there's good dictatorship.
Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah,
We'll talk about stuff next time.
inshallah. But we'll keep the discussion here. I mean, I think it's a very deep topic. And we can.
I really enjoyed today's
Yeah.
topic.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah,
It was a little long, but
Yeah, it got stressed.
so what?
alhamdulillah.
Allahumma salli Is there a tradition that we read Surah Al-Asr after a meeting like this, or is that not like a
Before, after.
We can
is it
start it.
authentic? Is it an authentic tradition of the Prophet
There
or the
is
Imam?
there is something I've read about where
I know it's an
before meetings.
authentic tradition amongst the Ahl Sunnah.
Oh, great. Yeah, I think it's great to recite it. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's end with reciting Surah Al-Asr.
Bid'ah.